Is it the best video game adaptation ever? How's it going, everyone? My name's Graham and welcome to Two Left Thumbs. The Mortal Kombat film reboot is something I have been anticipating for literally 20 years, and it's right around the corner. I should remain at best cautiously optimistic, yet I truly cannot contain my hype. Annihilation may be one of the worst video game adaptations ever made, if not one of the worst movies ever made. It's so laughably bad that it almost circles back around to being that desirable kind of good bad, but it comes up short and remains firmly bad. Between Annihilation's abysmal reviews and 20 years of Paul W.S. Anderson making terrible video game adaptations, I think the original Mortal Kombat film was dragged down in the wreckage. Keep in mind, this was Anderson's first video game adaptation, so it wasn't really his thing yet. He was still experimenting and had a lot to prove. And he had nothing to do with Annihilation. So I am here today to stand fully in defense of that original movie. I believe the 1995 Mortal Kombat film is, to this day, the best video game adaptation ever made. And even for all its flaws, I would argue it is in the running based on its quality, but the bar there is set pretty low. Yet parts of this movie are legitimately still great. I think I can build my case based on three main arguments. The game essence. How much does this movie feel like that original source game? Whether that be through story, characters, and the, quote, gameplay. How well does it bring that unique world to life? Do I feel like I am inhabiting and learning more about that game world? This would largely be sold through production design, the sets, costumes, and more. And how about the overall effectiveness as a movie? The comedy, pacing, character arcs, and generally, am I having a good time while I'm along for the ride? So yeah, there's definitely a fun factor there that's not just about filmmaking brilliance. First up will be game essence. How well does Mortal Kombat capture the soul of the game it's adapting? Yes, pun intended. Not necessarily the entire series, but that very first game whose story it was based on. Really, there weren't that many installments when this movie came out. I say this movie passes this category with flying colors. I'm putting it up front because it is my strongest argument. It's a straight 1-to-1 adaptation of that original Mortal Kombat game. And not just the story, but the gameplay, the heart of the franchise, the fighting. Specifically, the best of the best fighters from multiple realms battling it out in a tournament. This was very loose in the first game, and it was more specifically explained in greater detail in a video game tie-in comic and the eventual Mortal Kombat trilogy. Outworld has won the last 9 tournaments in a row, and upon winning this 10th would gain full control of Earthrealm as well. The story is simplistic. Don't expect any earth-shattering twists or revelations or anything really unexpected at all. It's a pretty cookie-cutter hero's journey. I mean, what more would anyone want from a Mortal Kombat movie? The stories can be well executed, effective, and fun, but almost any time Mortal Kombat as a series has tried to make the games more about the story, it doesn't really pan out. So why would anyone care if the Mortal Kombat film has a great story? Nope, it always has and always will be about the fighting. I don't think this movie has the best fight choreography. There have been many better examples before and after it, especially stacking it up against genre-defining fights from past decades in classic martial arts movies, or the more recent focus on gritty fighting spanning The Raid, Daredevil, and even John Wick. But I think this movie tried to do something unique with the fighting. It's often more cinematic and showy, rather than anything actually impressive or technical. It's certainly not the coolest moves you'll ever see, but I still find it incredibly enjoyable. There was a really strong effort here to give each individual fight its own flares and personality. The characters have different styles and signature moves. While I think this is probably the number one thing the new movie could improve upon, I still think there's something kind of unique and special about the way it was filmed in 1995. And more so than the quality of the fights, I want to talk about the quantity. You know, usually less is more, but when you're making a fighting game movie adaptation, more is more. Out of a total runtime of about 91 minutes, 54% of this movie is fighting. The early part of the movie includes some light fighting scenes, but it's not much of anything. But starting from about 36 minutes in, 1/3 of the runtime, till the end of the movie, it essentially straight up chains together fight scenes back to back to back to back. In the last 2/3 of that movie, there's about 15 minutes of plot sprinkled throughout, and it's only in these 2 to 4 minute chunks, with one of those plot scenes also taking place during a fight. If you bought a ticket thinking, all I want is to see these characters I love punch and kick and beat each other up, you're unlikely to be disappointed. And if you did buy a ticket to Mortal Kombat, I don't know what else you were looking for. Let's quickly rifle off the chained together fights that occupy the majority of this film's runtime. We start with a big team fight, which is outside of the tournament. It's just a great way to see our heroes show off a little and dummy some goons. We want to see them in action. This fight is also unique to this movie, having a big group fight like this, even if it ends up being a fairly lame stunt montage instead of a real fight. It's just a fun way to get the action moving without the tournament having officially started. Usually films include scenes like this when they want to punch things up and there hasn't been any action in a while. That would make sense. Up to this point it has been a little while since we've seen anyone throw a punch. But instead there's like no further exposition and we just go fight, 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 fight. Liu versus this random guy growling like a tiger does a great job setting the tone, even if we don't know who he is. It's cool to see these guys fighting with weapons. It's short and stylish, but it sets the bar for the stakes in the movie pretty effectively. I genuinely like the tension and the cinematic quality for it being the first real test of our hero. I'm suspicious that they filmed a lot of it in slow-mo strictly to show both these dudes flipping their glorious long hair around. Seriously, how did Robin Shou never end up in a L'Oreal commercial? I had a little notebook while I was watching this movie. I think I wrote down 2 separate times how jacked he looked, and 5 separate times how great his hair looked. We move straight into Sonya and Kano. It's slow, personal, and brutal. I love Kano's swagger through this whole movie, but he sells it so well walking into this fight. That genuinely feels like one of the more recent video game moments when the characters introduce themselves ahead of a fight beginning. This is an intimate showdown, and they film it as such. There's a lot of circling and eyeing each other up, burning stink eyes through each other. When they actually start fighting, nobody shrugs these hits off. They are messing each other up. For a pretty light-hearted movie, that rib kick is devastating. Holy crap. The pace of these 2 fights is kind of slow with all of the, slow motion being used, but we're really banging these fights out back to back, and I think it quite effectively kicks things off. One of my personal favorites is next, Johnny Cage vs. Scorpion. Again, just back to back. It's unpredictable and super showy, and that's before Johnny is sucked into Scorpion's hellish lair. At which point it turns into a bit of a highlight reel of who can do the most unnecessary flipping. It's kinda silly, but I love it. The fight in the woods is awesome, it's straight from the video game, and the way Scorpion's kind of teleporting around, sneaking up and then taking him to his lair, it's an interesting mashup of a horror film and a more traditional fight scene in the best, campiest way possible. I don't know why the heck they gave Scorpion this lizard snake hand thing instead of a traditional rope and spear. I guess it's more cinematic, and CGI was just kind of trendy at the time, but they made damn sure they still included "Get over here!" Not once, but twice. Come here! As well as some other goofy lines that they were obviously having fun with. Get down here! Although none of that quite compares to Scorpion's all-time best line in Annihilation. Suckers! That's maybe going a bit too far in the silly direction, but there was a little bit of that in the first movie too. This line in particular always gets a bit of a laugh from me. Welcome! Just some good old-fashioned NetherRealm hospitality. And some extra fun trivia for you. In addition to choreographing his own fights, Robin Shou was also the lead fight choreographer on the Scorpion vs. Johnny fight, even going so far as to create the concept of Scorpion's lair, basing it on Tibetan burial tombs. That moment is so rad in the movie that from Mortal Kombat 4 onward, Scorpion has a special move to teleport his enemy to the NetherRealm. We have our exposition fight of Liu and Katana. The fighting here is a joke, it's people holding tableaus and then talking to each other, but it is still technically a fight. Although I don't know what the stakes were, because no one's killing each other, and like why? I don't even know why this is here. Is this part of the tournament? I don't get it. The movie's not perfect, okay? As soon as that's done, we move into Sub-Zero and Liu. This one is definitely slower, but has some of the better looking CGI, I suppose, and is mostly fought left to right like in games, which is a cool nod to that format. Plus the lighting is just kind of neat, and it's probably the coolest showcase of any of the characters' special abilities. The CGI is still weak, it was 1995, but it's some of the best in this movie. This fight in particular is super underwhelming overall. It just ends quickly without much actual fighting, and it annoys me that Liu just stands there and watches. Katana physically showing up to remind Liu of the most on-the-nose advice ever is pretty stupid, like one scene after she gave it to him.
Lisa needs braces.
Wait, no, sorry, I meant...
To win your next match, use the element which brings life.
What?
Use the element which brings life.
And she also just shows up to remind him. She doesn't actually physically repeat it herself. This character is just so wasted. We get a montage of Goro dummying a bunch of random fighters that we've never heard of. I guess Raiden was just filling out the roster a little bit. He didn't actually have any faith in any of them winning the tournament. But this leads into Johnny Cage versus Goro, which, true to form, they made more comedic. It fits the character of Johnny Cage, but is also a genius workaround for the fact that they couldn't really have their big goofy puppet do any actual fighting. So it's not a great fight, but it's still effective for what it is. I love that this ending one-liner,
"This is where you fall down." "This is where you fall down,"
is awesome for us, but would mean absolutely nothing to Goro. I just love thinking of the confusion he must have felt in those final moments. We have a little bit of plot actually taking place, and we have Lu versus Reptile, which was apparently filmed and added in after test audiences thought that the fights were a little lacking. Their response was to add in the most action-heavy, intense fight in the entire film. This one was again choreographed by Robin Shou. At this point, I think they really had the confidence to let him take charge of that stuff, since anything he had a hand in was yielding the best results. Not only does it probably have the best music of any of the fights, this one honestly feels like two of the best are going all out. This horrible piece of CGI merging with the statue is utter nonsense, but I still love everything about it. We then have our final boss fight of the movie. Shang Tsung is definitely cheating by summoning these past warriors, but it's just kinda dope. Their final fight is actually a little bit of a letdown. In terms of the build-up and the eventual payoff, it's pretty great. But it's a little disappointing when Lu versus Reptile seem to just be a lot more action-heavy and intense. I think even the side character fights it sprinkled in are still entertaining in their own small way. While not all the fights are actually that spectacular in terms of skill on display or incredible fight choreo, the movie has no shortage of fighting. I think it's just really effectively done to have the pacing of these fights mixed up so much, and making maximum use of that 90-minute runtime. We have slow-mo, with and without weapons, fast and punchy, switching scenery, an interesting special ability showcase. The quality varies quite a bit, but they all serve a purpose, are generally all entertaining on at least one level, if not always for their fighting, and it's just a great showcase of the game's character variety. Plus, Scorpion's fight ends with him spouting fluorescent goop before exploding like a gasoline transport truck for no reason, and somehow Johnny sees that coming? I don't need an explanation for how he got out of Scorpion's lair after. Who needs that sort of exposition when you gave me the greatest end to a fight scene ever filmed? I can't give the story points for being great, but it essentially gets a 10 out of 10 for being true to its source, something that seems pretty important for the best video game adaptation of all time. But it passes in flying colors by keeping the fighting as a focal point. In terms of pure execution, video game to big screen, this is the best there is. It's not simply characters you're familiar with in a completely unrecognizable, totally tangential story with a bunch of unfamiliar, quote, relatable add-ins being tossed in the mix, or some plot so far off the rails that it's lost every identifying quality of that source material. It's a Mortal Kombat story with Mortal Kombat characters, beating each other up the way only Mortal Kombat can. How can you not also love all the nods to the game throughout as well?
Flawless victory. Fatality.
Right! Finish him! Finish him!
Flawless victory.
Flawless victory.
I mean, I don't think that one was flawless. Maybe you should stick to the fighting, Lu, rather than the refereeing. We also have Johnny's Mortal Kombat 2 Friendship Fatality, which is so cocky and arrogant, and they don't even show him do it, but it's still great. They even found a place to squeeze in his Nutbuster move. Honestly, that nut shot is reason enough for this movie to exist and to earn its place. I might as well end the video right here. They even have Reptile being announced when he joins the fight. Lu uses a full-on bicycle kick, which is so absurd. And we have a stage fatality at the movie's end. Putting this footage together now, I realize they actually referenced the pit fatalities from both Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. Those little moments are sprinkled throughout with very little attention drawn to them. It's not like they're hidden or secret moments, but they're also quickly integrated and presented and moved past. And that's perfect. That's really what I want. I think comic book movies have always been great at this sort of subtle Easter egg laying. include a quick nod for the fans who are going to appreciate it.
Doctor Strange.
That's pretty good. But it's taken.
But don't dwell on it to confuse anyone who's not in on that payoff. It's great to see a video game adaptation give us that same quiet fan service. I think there's other movies that could learn a thing or two. Based strictly on the adaptation of the story and the use of the gameplay earns its place as the purest video game adaptation. But we're talking about the best. And no, I don't think this movie's perfect, even though I do very much love it for what it is. I still think there are enough other interesting and admirable elements to this movie that make it noteworthy in this conversation. Next, I want to examine the look and feel of the movie. How well, through sets, production design, costumes, and more, how well they help sell this unique world. It's easy to love the production design of a big spectacle like Mad Max Fury Road, anything Wes Anderson, or something kooky like Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Big, larger-than-life movies that shout at you from the screen with every square inch of their visuals and art direction. It's one of the greatest joys of a visual medium like filmmaking. But I've always loved any movie that can give me something impressive, new and unique, while still feeling just real enough that I could actually imagine being there. The production design of this movie is something I've been aware of from a very young age, but never had the eye or vocabulary to express why it was so good. And yes, this does look like sets, it doesn't look like the real world. It's less about the actual look and the fact that it feels real. The characters are in a real place that I am actively participating and believing in. The best recent example of that is probably Black Panther. There are all these familiar elements pulling from real cultures and integrating that with this fictional sci-fi super technology. The end result is absolutely stunning. No, I won't kid myself by saying Mortal Kombat's production design is as good as Black Panther's. It was likely never going to win an Oscar in any year, even if people did pay it the attention it deserved. I can say it's underrated without saying it's the best ever made. There are a few too many choices that are a little too out there to really feel completely coherent or logical, but what we end up with is a combination of well-selected locations, built sets, cinematography, color contrast, and sheer confidence behind it all that really set this movie apart. One of the opening scenes of this movie is 100% green, for no reason other than it looked kinda neat. Not even The Matrix took it this far. It's like the episode of Seinfeld with the fried chicken across the street. Why is this normal? That's the stuff that maybe goes a little too far, but you can't say it's not bold. As I've said on the channel, I'm a fan of the Schumacher Batman films and the Birds of Prey movie, so I tend to like big, bright, loud colors. But the movie isn't all garish neon. The temple towards the beginning with Liu and the monks, the dank docks followed by this eerie, otherworldly ship, this awesome beachside fighting arena, and of course Scorpion's domain. More than any of that, I love the interior scenes. Basically any of these dining halls or weird caverns, whatever they are, it's where like half the movie takes place. I really like these. I know relying that heavily on orange and blue is maybe a little bit of a cheap trick, but the amount of set decoration, insane levels of mood-setting candles, stalactites, and insane gargoyles, sprinkle in some other statues, it all stands out in a way that in the quarter century since, I still don't think I've seen anything else quite like it. They had a specific vision in mind, they went 110% on it, and for better or worse, they created something totally unique. There are so many still shots from this movie that just look incredible. They really sell me on everything the movie's trying to do. We don't spend a load of time there, but Outworld then gets an entirely new, distinct design. There are still statues, but even creepier than ever, there are skulls, crumbling brick, and this decrepit, corrupt-feeling temple-like settings. It's familiar, but twisted. It's not the most groundbreaking stuff out there, but it's really cool. We even get the literal tournament tower. The in-game lore of Outworld is that it's an amalgamate realm encompassing all the others that they have conquered through the tournament. While more could be done to sell Outworld as including elements of many more composited realms, I think they did a wonderful job on a pretty limited budget. It stands out, it's interesting, it seems like everyone involved did a good job, and more than that, it seems like they had fun creating something weird and new. There isn't much more to be said in this section, other than I think it's a vastly underappreciated part of this movie. It's genuinely going to be tough for me to put these straight up fun sets out of mind while watching the upcoming reboot. Look at this final arena where Liu Kang and Shang Tsung throw down. Again, they're leaning a little hard on the orange-blue contrast, but it's just a dope location for the big boss fight. Pillars, chains, spikes poking up out of what I assume is tinfoil. It's awesome. Plus, this staircase leads to a very unintentionally funny moment.
You can look into my soul, but you don't own it.
Oh, hold on, just a sec. Let me get my heart rate up first. Does my hair still look cool? Whew. Sorry for the wait. Yeah, I'm poking fun at this movie throughout the whole thing because I want to share what I like about it while still acknowledging that it has some pretty serious flaws. But at the end of the day, it is still a pretty good movie. Outside of being an adaptation, Mortal Kombat has a serviceable story, fun action scenes, and a visually intriguing style. But how does it hold up as an actual movie? The characters, tone, pacing, and arcs. All the meat and potatoes that would actually make this movie worth watching rather than just a few interesting short films. Or the sort of things that would keep me watching it numerous times over the years. The plot is simple and effective because the tournament itself is more of a setup than the actual core conflict. Rather, the movie is a character-driven ensemble where the characters often punch each other. I mean, what are the rules? What's really going on? It seems like BS that Shang Tsung is allowed to claim the soul of someone he didn't defeat. How do they decide who gets weapons in what fights, and what are those limitations? Is anyone allowed to request any weapon? Why is Scorpion allowed to change the venue of the fight? Is Scorpion's living hand, Snake, dead forever now? Is that thing gonna grow its head back? Everyone has about 2 fights each, yet somehow Goro apparently had about 20? Was everyone else getting buys this whole time through the tournament, skipping to the top of the ladder? Why does Shang Tsung get so hung up on Sonya? What's his plan there once he has her? Why can he suddenly join the tournament? What are the rules there?
Oh, what are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules?
And yeah, while I'm trying to convince you this movie is great, I have to acknowledge where it has issues. This thing's not getting a 10 out of 10, you know? But still, it actually does a decent job establishing the stakes, both globally and personally, especially when we first see that dude get his soul sucked. At its core, it's a character-driven movie, and if we at least know that thread is there, the rest of the plot being so loose doesn't really matter. One of the best things I can say about the movie, something I can't believe hasn't come up yet in this video. Should have been the first thing I said. This movie has one of the greatest soundtracks of all time. I probably can't play you a single second of it because of copyright issues. But that album went platinum for crying out loud. The unique blend of techno dance music and rock is just so unexpected, but keeps the energy levels high and makes you similarly want to move around. Whether that be a few living room karate moves and high kicks, or tearing it up like a bunch of animals at a rave. It's pretty inarguably the best part about this movie. Yeah, Wiz Khalifa, you're cool, I guess, but you have nothing on this movie's title theme. The comedy throughout this movie is surprisingly well done. I'll talk about it more in a minute since it's almost entirely carried by Johnny Cage, but it feels like a natural in-between of the action hero one-liners of the 80s and 90s and the quippy Marvel Universe dialogue seen in the 2010s until now. There's a lot of sarcasm and cynicism on the delivery, with a fair amount of self-deprecation, without any of it being that sort of annoyingly clever thing that I think is starting to wear thin on some moviegoers. This movie deserves credit for somehow taking itself so seriously while maintaining a consistent tongue-in-cheek sense of humor. The stakes are high, but the tone is light, and it keeps the story and action trotting along at an enjoyable clip. It may veer into too corny here and there, but then there are great gags like Johnny confidently tracking Katana,
Katana went this way.
when she clearly couldn't have gone this way with all the webs. Like I said, this is a character-driven movie, and the characters overall are pretty great. There's a few pretty big misses in there, but there are a few that are so good they literally changed the game.
Kano.
Video game Kano was an orphan falling into a life of crime and rising through the ranks of the Black Dragon clan. I have no idea what the casting directors were looking for when they picked up English actor Trevor Goddard for this role, but he made it his own, making Kano an obnoxious Australian slob with the most in-your-face cocksuredness. This interpretation of the character was so well received that it became the new template for Kano in the official Mortal Kombat series. Trevor Goddard, we thank you for this delightfully creative take on the character and are thankful that your legacy has been so thoroughly cemented in the video game series. That is an impressive mark for an actor to leave on a minor character who's only really in the first act of this movie.
Johnny Cage.
Lyndon Ashby is the perfect Johnny Cage. Every second he spends on screen is a delight. Something in the ballpark of 3/4 of his lines are jokes, one-liners, and sarcastic remarks, constantly commentating on his surroundings.
I can see why they want to change the scenery.
There are barely any other jokes in this movie, but he may just be the most effective comedic relief ever put to screen. How does he knock the delivery of every single line out of the park?
Those were $500 sunglasses, asshole.
Killing off Johnny 2 seconds into that second film is the worst mistake they could have made. And that's the only thing that second movie gets wrong. If they would have kept Ashby, oh boy, you better believe that would have been gold. The script was being worked on as filming commenced, and Paul W.S. Anderson encouraged a lot of ad-libbing. This generally helped settle a particular tone for the movie, as it gave him a lot more control over the script and story, but also gave performers like Lyndon a lot of creative license with their characters.
Telling you, I hate it. I'm in a hostile environment. I am completely unprepared. I'm surrounded by people who probably want to kick my ass.
The hired screenwriter has referred to Ashby as the asshole that ruined my script. So really, we should be giving him as much credit as we do Goddard for the acting, but also we can credit him with a lot of the comedy that keeps this movie so enjoyable. There is one section where they skate past any need for exposition by instead having Ashby deliver 4 jokes in a row.
Where the hell are we?
Do I look like your travel agent?
Fine.
But what if all the legends were true?
What legends?
Do you need help with those?
No more steps. Can't wait to see what the bathrooms look like. You know, when a woman looks at you like that, it usually means something.
Using that to string together some scenes? That's a lot to put on one actor's shoulders, and it's so impressive when you're looking for it to realize how much he's utilized in this movie.
Got a guy with things coming out of his hand. We got another guy who freezes stuff. And then there's a man who, as far as I can tell, is made out of electricity. I mean, how did he...
I more commonly see Johnny portrayed as this cocky, cheeky asshole, but Lyndon gave us the lovable asshole that I most commonly associate with the character.
Sonia.
Sonia isn't given a whole lot to work with. It's a shame. She starts out a badass, right up until her super brutal fight with Kano. Then she has supposedly fulfilled her revenge arc and is barely in the movie after that. She's later used as a damsel in distress, which is super lame and a total waste. And this absurd costume swap is so bad and unforgivable that it nearly discredits anything else this movie has going for it. Cameron Diaz was actually set to play the character, but broke her wrist while training. While that would have been interesting to see, I respect Bridget Wilson-Sampras for her dedication to the role. She was flown out the next day, trained between takes, and did all her own stunts. Maybe people aren't the biggest fans of this, but the flirty aspect between Sonia and Johnny comes from this movie, and I like that they kept it flirty. They never really do anything with it. It makes for a cute dynamic and builds a meaningful relationship between these characters. It's a shame they unceremoniously dump her character so early on.
Liu Kang.
This is the big one. I like what Robin Shou does here. He actually makes me care about Liu, something that is tough to do with a chosen one de facto hero. And the fact that he played such a major role in the choreography is awesome. His acting is fine. Luckily, this is an ensemble film because I don't think he could have quite carried it solo, but I think it's effective when he has other people to bounce off of. The main trio actually have pretty good chemistry. I also respect that he was committed enough to sign up for a trilogy and see that through with the second movie. I think it's also pretty clear he was the most talented fighter in the main cast. I mean, look at that. It's a pretty hard move to pull off. His own revenge arc and one of accepting his place as the chosen one for the Shaolin monks is super cookie cutter. Even 25 years ago, it was pretty trope-laden, but it's true to the games, so I suppose it does the job. Also, Robin Shou just seems like the nicest guy in Hollywood.
I have the famous Robin Shou with me.
I'm the famous Robin Shou. Thank you, though. I'm just Robin Shou.
Katana is barely even present. Apparently they had her set up as Liu's love interest, then someone decided, well, wait a minute, romance isn't the same as punching, then wisely cut that all out of there. Instead, she just shows up to state the obvious thing we were just shown.
You're finally learning, Liu Kang.
They probably should have just cut her from the movie entirely. Maybe they had already been filming and they just really couldn't cut around it. I don't know, she's just kind of there. What can I really say about Goro? They tried? They obviously weren't going to pull that off with CGI, but it's still a relatively impressive bit of puppeteering. Practical effects are all the rage right now. Even if it looks a little goofy, at least they did it for real. I'd say the intense, reliable voice acting of Kevin Michael Richardson helps sell him as a real threat even when he can't really move. A montage of him killing like 100 people also helps sell that. Although apparently Kano couldn't care less. You'd think that would undermine the threat of Goro, but instead it only builds up what a cocky a-hole Kano is. I also really enjoy the little joke that Goro was playing himself during the credits. Okay, I know we'd get there eventually.
Raiden.
We have to talk about Raiden, because, what the hell is Christopher Lambert doing with this character? Yet at the same time, Raiden somehow works? This casting is so strange. Everything about him is so odd and puzzling, rather than the typical mystic with muscles we usually see in the games. He'll bust out the most epic, intimidating line, and then follow it up with that weird, awkward, kinda lame chuckle. How do you go from delivering this line,
One of you three will decide the outcome of the tournament.
"Oh wow, he's so cool," to this,
The fate of billions will depend upon you.
"What the hell's going on? I'm so uncomfortable." But then he keeps doing it and it really becomes a thing, and in a weird way, he's almost making fun of his own goofy laugh.
Sorry.
Most game or movie mentors usually have this calm sensei presence and extreme gravitas, dispensing fortune cookie platitudes of wisdom. And while we get some of the latter, the former is instead replaced with this creepy, humorous, cocky oddball with this awkward laughing. What are these choices? Why do they work?
Shang Tsung.
And finally, for our main antagonist, Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa's Shang Tsung. He is honestly so perfect. I don't know how he can manage to play the character this seriously, but without playing into the camp. You'd think he had the wrong read on the film and that it's at odds with the rest of the tone. It's incredible that him playing this so straight doesn't totally spin the movie out. But there's just that hint of hamming it up that keeps it in line with the rest of the movie. Really, his stage production-like acting provides balance instead. Johnny's out here yucking it up, while Tagawa gives us the gravitas that stops the movie from slipping into straight-up goofball slapstick. He and Lambert are so committed to what they're doing, taking opposite routes, yet both landing at a place of deadpan seriousness. Seriously, one of them's doing Game of Thrones and the other one's doing The Princess Bride. And I still buy it. I so badly want to see more of them bouncing off each other. Just a couple of all-powerful beings talking smack. To anyone who's seen this movie, this is your Shang Tsung. The trope-based antagonist of that original game is barely a character. This is a legacy that has also persisted. With the fan-made turned canon project Mortal Kombat Legacy, of course when it came time to have Shang Tsung, they brought in Tagawa. And in 2019's Mortal Kombat 11, they redesigned the character to look more like his portrayal. 25 years later, and this is the Shang Tsung people remember. Honestly, in this reboot, I'd be fine if they just brought him back. They had the character played quite young 25 years ago. It'd be kinda awesome if he played the character a bit differently now. Rather than the Kung Fu Master punch-throwing sorcerer, if he was instead that wizened older character who kind of hangs out in the back, but who you know could really kick your ass if it came down to it. There's almost no replacing this one more than any of the rest of the characters. So yeah, Kitana's a waste and Goro's a puppet, but the rest of the characters are pretty damn great. The arcs themselves are pretty bland or non-existent. It feels maybe a little too much when Raiden states their character flaws straight to their faces.
You, Johnny, are afraid you're fake. Are afraid to admit even you sometimes need help. You fear your own destiny.
You might as well have told them they had no heart, no brains, and no courage. I mean, Raiden tells Johnny his flaw.
So you'll rush into any fight just to prove you're not.
Then Johnny immediately proves him right, and that's somehow what Raiden wanted? I guess his strength is his weakness? I don't think they really thought it through. Yeah, sure, why not? In the end, Liu accepts his destiny and avenges his brother. Sonya gets her revenge, Johnny becomes less selfish. But I wouldn't expect anything more complex from a movie that has a minimal setup and barely any room for exposition or character growth, while characters are busy punching each other in the nuts. Liu's acceptance of his brother's death is fine, but it feels a little off when he starts saying,
Chan chose his own path. Every man is responsible for his own destiny.
Liu, excuse me, I don't think he chose to be brutally murdered. It doesn't matter what path he was down if he fell in with a bad crowd. It really seemed like you almost took the right lesson away from this. What happened? Fumbled it right before the end zone. While a lot of other components of this movie work, I still want to give Paul W.S. Anderson some directing credit here. Maybe it cuts a little too frequently, swapping angles between every punch thrown, and the over-reliance on slow motion. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. The performers were competent enough to pull off some really cool moves. They didn't have to cut around for lack of skill, so it's not quite the rapid-fire, nauseating editing we've seen in other films. One thing he definitely recognized is how compelling the sets and environments were. He often does these relatively long takes and constantly moves the camera all around these locations, giving us new insights and angles. I want to explore this unique world, and the camera often does that for me, and that's something I really appreciate. I didn't have a better spot for this since it falls outside the literal movie, but do you guys remember the character posters for Mortal Kombat? Character posters are a common thing and a fun way to get excited about a movie. It makes more sense for some movies than others, but it is perfect for a movie like this, as it's almost like a stand-in for a character select screen. Look at these and tell me they're not the coolest thing ever. Movies like Detective Pikachu are good. That's probably my second choice for all-time best. That movie is fun, with a well-realized world and decent characters. It nearly fits all my criteria for the best, and it probably does a few things better than Mortal Kombat. But Mortal Kombat still edges it out by creating an adaptation so strong that it in turn directly affected the original franchise.
Don't you owe me some sunglasses?
Pokemon's got nothing on that. This movie already holds a cult classic status, and I want it to have the recognition it deserves for its iconic realization of the Mortal Kombat universe.
Come to a little tournament, he said. Be good for the career, he said.
As I've said, the pacing of this movie is fairly brisk. They're only asking 90 minutes from you. I think more movies should be this length. I genuinely enjoy the assembling of the cast early on, seeing them all come together. Johnny definitely has the best introduction, with a few short minutes each to establish the rebel monk, cocky actor, and vengeful special ops agent. We then jump to boarding a boat, then we have a dinner that's cut short, the stakes are immediately set, and then the movie is fighting through to the end with a few minutes of exposition. I kind of worry that if the new movie is anything longer than 100 minutes and spends anything more than 50% of its screen time on plot, then it simply won't live up to the satisfaction I get from watching this movie. I want so badly for it to prove me wrong with something new and daring, but all I really want is Mortal Kombat 1995 with some updated effects and maybe some expanded fight choreo. Give me that, and 2021's Mortal Kombat will then instead be the best video game adaptation. This movie benefits top to bottom from its commitment to adapting the video game, and in the pursuit of that strict adherence, created iconic characters, moments, and more that are now fully integrated into the official video game series. On top of all the ways I love this movie myself, I think that should tell you all you need to know. The creators of the game itself valued the creativity and concepts in this movie enough to make many choices canon. What higher praise for an adaptation is there than that? I've covered my 3 bits of criteria. I have one final section of this video that's more of a personal take, a personal connection to Mortal Kombat. I've always considered myself a big-time Mortal Kombat fan. I dressed up in a scorpion costume for more than one Halloween. I think I wore a homemade one twice, and a generic yellow scorpion costume for Halloween once. I'm sure my mom was just thrilled that when she wanted to dress me up as like a pumpkin, that was like, nah, I want to be the ninja who starts people on fire. I believe this was also my first ever animated Flash parody was for Mortal Kombat. It's atrocious. It's so bad.
You're it.
But again, that has its own special place in my heart. And I obsessively collected these stickers for this little album that you could buy that was a movie tie-in. There was all these different places, and some of the stickers you had to collect were like a grid of 4, so you had to get the 4 unique stickers to complete the full picture. Some of them were like holographic. You had to buy sticker packs like you would Pokemon cards. It was awesome. It included details about the characters and like behind the scenes and stuff like that. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. When I really stopped and thought about it while putting this video together, I know next to nothing about the games. We never had an arcade in town. I didn't personally own a console until the Wii. My exposure to playing the games was a few times a year when I would go over to my cousin's place and we'd boot up like his Sega Genesis or his PlayStation 1. At one point, my older brother had a handheld version on his Sega Game Gear. That was a treat. I remember playing a few poorly emulated copies. Me and my buddy rented a copy of Shaolin Monks together and tried to play as much as we could in one night and just did not make it very far into the game. We actually had this Tiger Electronics dedicated handheld LCD Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero game. Apparently they're like a collector's item now. They're super hard to get a hold of. We probably broke ours or lost it decades ago, unfortunately. I just remember the trick to that game being you had to jump and kick, because if you did anything else, you were just going to take hits and die quickly. Our local movie gallery went out of business and I bought Mortal Kombat Armageddon. That was so exciting for me to personally feel like I finally owned Mortal Kombat. But really, I'm terrible at fighting games. I've never been good at a single one I've ever played. I've never put in the time, and I've never owned them to practice, you know? When it comes down to it, my entire personal Mortal Kombat fandom comes down to this movie. And yeah, you know, when I was a kid, I'm sure I loved Annihilation because I was a child. And I think with that limited access, my own personal attachment to the series continued to grow in ways that existed outside the actual games. I would read Wikipedia pages and try and ingest as much of the lore as I could. A bunch of online Flash parodies, whether they be games or movies. I remember renting VHSs of the old animated show, and now to this day I'm not really sure if it was Defenders of the Realm or that movie tie-in animated thing that's kind of 3D, kind of 2D. I don't think I ever saw Mortal Kombat Conquest, but easily my most significant gateway was the 1995 film. I own a copy of it. I wanted to have that to show and share. I just put together my DVD bonus video, and then I put away all my DVDs, so I don't have that on hand. In 1995, I would have only been 3 years old. I think it's very unlikely I saw that movie in theaters, but I know that I saw a Mortal Kombat movie in theaters because my mom frequently brings up how much she hates the fact that she brought, her youngish children to a movie that was just a bunch of ninjas punching each other. So I'm pretty certain I got to see Mortal Kombat Annihilation in theaters. My brother's a few years older. We were probably going to the movie more for his sake, and I got brought along. I was probably too young to even have a strong opinion of it, but I imagine he really liked the movies. He had probably seen both of them, and I just kind of got brought along for the ride. But I do kind of also remember being at our cousin's place, and we would play as Reptile and Scorpion, and I would just spam his rope move over and over because that was the only thing I learned how to do. He'd be trying to turn invisible and teleport and spit acid, whatever Reptile does, and I would just keep doing the rope move. Younger brothers are great, eh? I could not get this out of my head. This was the coolest thing ever. It's so funny seeing on the back that this sticker booklet would have sold for $1.39. It's so cool though. There's so much awesome stuff going on in here. And when I'm looking at it now, I'm realizing how massive it is. I thought, it's pretty extensive. There's quite a bit going on here. There is 100, we're in the 150s there. That's all this extra artwork. There's concept art and behind the scenes and things like that. They made it really decorative. I don't know what the Mortal Kombat live tour is, but that sounds incredible. I feel like I would have had fantasies about going to see that. That sounds like the best thing ever. It goes all the way up to R there, so I think it works out to something like 170 stickers, and I only ordered enough of the little sticker packets that I think there's 6 per packet, and I got 10 of them, so only 60, and it's randomized like Pokemon cards. So even if I got 60 unique stickers, I still couldn't actually fill out the booklet. So I don't really know what to do with that. I was planning to rip open packets and it would be fun and do that on camera, but now I'm nervous. It's should I get HD scans of these made or something and preserve it in that way? I don't know if that already exists. I don't know. If people are interested in this video enough to have watched to this point, you gotta help me decide. Do I buy more packets and live stream it and try and fill up the whole booklet or whatever? Me and my brother both had a full one of these. That's 300 and some stickers, unique stickers, which I don't know how many of these you would have to buy to put together 2 full one of these packets or albums. I remember it being so fun. You'd rip them open and then trade ones that you were missing and swap and share them. It was fun. It was great. I don't know. I'm over the moon. I'm so excited about the fact that I own that again, but I don't entirely know what to do with it. If people enjoy this video, and on top of helping me decide what to do with that, I am really interested in watching the Defenders of the Realm animated series and Mortal Kombat Conquest and sharing my thoughts on those. I would have never seen either of those in their entirety. I don't think I even saw Conquest at all. And so it would be really fun to dig into all this old Mortal Kombat stuff ahead of the new movie coming out. I don't know if I would bother, reviewing Annihilation. It just seems like it would be sad. I've seen it relatively recently. I don't know if I need to spend time sharing my thoughts on that. Plenty of people have dunked on that movie for decades. Years ago, back when all this was still being tossed around and we had no confirmation because, once every for years there'd be a new announcement of Mortal Kombat's getting rebooted. Just kidding, development hell. Oh, it's coming back. Oh, I swear we have a director this time. No, just kidding, they're out. James Wan's on board. Who knows? It's still pretty rough. Like, that happened for so many years. I never truly got fully excited. I almost didn't believe this movie was happening till they finally released screenshots and a release date for it. It's like, hey, it's finally happening. But back years ago, I made my own fan casting of what I thought like an ideal Mortal Kombat movie would look like. A Mortal Kombat movie is what I want. I want more of that. I would very much like to do a review of the new movie on the channel and, wanted to make sure I had my thoughts on the original out there first. We'll see. I got a lot of priorities to shift on the channel, but if people are asking for it, Defenders of the Realm, retrospective review, Conquest, big summary review, then yeah, I would enjoy doing those myself. I should leave this with some final thoughts on the Mortal Kombat movie, kind of bring things back a little bit. And now that I'm older and have come back to it and have extra context and retrospection on it all, not only is it the best, not only do I enjoy it, putting myself back in the little ninja booties of 5-year-old Graham, I also think it is still the best video game adaptation. Thank you to patrons of the channel. Their support always means a lot. I have a little something extra at the video here that I wouldn't normally do, but I would like to dedicate this video to my older brother. He might be one of the only people who's still watching the video up to this point, because I think he's the only other person I know on this planet who loves this movie as much as I do, and has the same perspective of me, of having grown up with Mortal Kombat more in the context of things like this movie rather than the games themselves. I assume because I was so young at the time that my love for the series truly spun out from his own. So, thank you again to him for that. Scorpion rules. Reptile drools. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.